You know what's great is when you go home, you walk in the house, your wife or your kids go, man, you stink. You know what? That's the best thing. Stink like fish. Here we go. Here's a, oh, I missed him. He's a spot. He got off. I mean, just stink. I love that. That's what a shower's for, right? Bob Hope said in one of his movies, I like soap and I like water. Makes me smell just like I oughter. So, here in a little while, I'm going to show you guys how to modify a swim jig for open water. A swim jig can be excellent for a lot of times catching a little bit bigger than average. Like sometimes you'll catch a little bit bigger of the white bass out here. Definitely you'll catch a little bit bigger of some of the spotted bass. But I modify these swim jigs, and I'll explain all the reasons why. And it works really good in these situations. See these guys splashing all over the place. I keep it right under the surface, and they just look up and it's a silhouette and they just can't help but bite it. There's some right here. Let's see if I can do it again. Rod tip high, right under the surface. They're already hitting it. Wait for one of them to get hooked here. Some of the smaller ones you won't hook, which is okay with me. Some of the bigger ones are the ones you wind up getting. And it's a little bigger profile than a small swim bait, but you can literally catch some good fish just by keeping it right under the surface when the circumstances are like this. There's a lot of ways that I like to fish a swim jig, but I said I wasn't going to catch small ones. Well, I was not exactly truthful there. They'll go after it too. You know, a lot of times in bass fishing, you can throw a little bit bigger baits, and even those small guys will go after it. And this is just oh, there's another one. This is just a nice tight profile swim jig. And just a little bit of modification on this thing will definitely catch a lot of fish. It's a very, right now I'm running into a lot of white bass, but the spotted bass are out here too. And I caught a little one, I'm sorry, I didn't catch a little, I caught a nice one just a few minutes ago. I saw some fish on the bottom. Oh, here we go again. Okay, I like to use these gloves when I know I'm gonna be catching white bass. It's got that mesh in it, and I just get them a lot easier. But back to what I was saying, I'll show you real quick. I caught a nice 2+ pound spot. I saw some of them go underneath the white bass. I knew they were spots because that's what they do. They were right on the bottom, and caught a nice one. Oh, this is a nice spotted bass right here. Oh yeah. Come here, baby, come here. Don't go anywhere, don't go anywhere. There you go. Oh yeah, man, that's a nice bass. So what I've noticed on my screen is there is a lot of bass that are on the bottom. And so I know most of those are gonna be spotted bass, and that's a nice chunky, probably about 2+. What a gorgeous bass. You can still hear some of these fish splashing back here. A lot of those are white bass. I'm throwing this little jig, and what happened was I think he saw it coming down because I went to, you know, pull up my slack. He already had it in his mouth. They start hitting this thing immediately. I'm just waiting for the right one to hit it. I'm not reeling it real fast, just rod tip high. I got one of my new swim baits on there. It's got a nice action to it. And they just can't help it. There we go. Sometimes just wait for the right one, but I'm throwing this because I'm hoping a big old spotted bass will come up and take it. You know, I'm catching less because I'm using this bait, but I've already caught so many, I'm not worried about it. Right now, I'm just hoping that maybe a 2 or 3 pound spotted bass will come up and hit this swim jig. I use a little heavier line with a swim jig because it has a much more stout hook. So I got 15-pound test. I'm throwing a medium heavy 7'2" Okuma EVX rod. Working it just like I would a spinnerbait or even a chatterbait. But sometimes you don't always need the blade. Sometimes the blade Can even be a little bit of a problem for some of the fish. When it's calm like this, they may not want it. So you can throw a swim jig, get the same profile as far as some of a spinner bait and of course a bladed jig, and you can just get a whole bunch of fish with these things and have a lot of fun with them. Swim jigs are typically known for throwing in cover and grass, and that's what they're good for. But I'm telling you right now, they're every bit as good in top water. Just a little bit of modifying will make the biggest difference with a swim jig. You can throw it on the bottom and drag it like a jig. You can sweep your rod, just let it go along the bottom, all kinds of stuff. And just another way to catch a whole bunch of fish. They swiped at this and actually got my swim bait tail hooked. But they're splashing around all over the place. I caught a bunch of spotted bass earlier in one area out here, and then all of a sudden these white bass started showing up, and here they are. I don't know, this is probably a white, hopefully a little bigger one. No, another small white. But I tell you what, even these smaller white bass, you know, I can't help it. I just, they're so fun and they're so strong. I mean, these fish are strong and they have a bad attitude. That's what makes them good. Fishing is fun. Okay, there we go. So what I'm looking for is a spotted bass. Where there's one, there's gonna be more. So sometimes I just gotta go around, fish the area until hopefully I run into a school of them. Is this a white? No, that's a nice spot right here. There we go. Oh yeah, I really felt like, oh yeah, that's another big spot. I really felt like if I stayed in this area, because I caught some smaller ones earlier, I figured I'd get a nice white or spotted bass, and this is a nice one here. Hang on, dude, stay where you are. There you go. Oh yeah. Yeah, look at that. Swim jig's got him right top of the mouth. That's where you want it, in that area. He's got a mouth full of bait fish. This one here feels maybe 2 1/4, maybe even 2 1/2. He feels really heavy. I love you, man. It's Dalton, everybody. I had to come home and end this video here in my garage. I pulled out my other GoPro, did the ending, came home, realized it didn't record, so I want to show you real quick how I modify a swim jig for open water. I caught a lot of fish on this thing today, and primarily the way I caught most of them was just working it right under the surface, because most of the fish were up top feeding. The swim jig I used today, and I'm going to put my reading glasses on here. The swim jig I use is it's a Guggen. It's called a grass jig, 3/8 ounce. I picked up some of these whenever I went by a store. I think they were on sale. And there's two things that I look at when I'm modifying a swim jig, or any jig for that matter. The first thing is, how long is the skirt? I either want the skirt to be right at the bottom of the hook or maybe an inch past. On this one here, I'm not going to modify the skirt. I'm not going to trim it up. It's perfect the way it is. But here's the key to me of modifying a swim jig for open water. That means you're not getting caught up in any weeds, wood, grass, none of that. This is just like throwing a spinnerbait or a chatterbait in open water. I want to take this weed guard off. That's the main thing. They just glue these things in, so they're really easy to just pull out, but you don't need it in open water, because if you have it on there, it's just something that obstructs the hook. You're going to get a few less hook sets. I just pull it off, looks just like that, and then I take whatever swim bait I use. Right now I'm using my own. This is a bluegill colored swim bait that I make, and I measure it because all I want is the tail to stick out the bottom of this swim jig. I'm going to go ahead and trim it just like so. I'm always cutting my baits and bending wires and doing all kinds of stuff to get it to fit right. It's a real simple, easy technique. but it will literally catch you a lot of fish. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry I had to wrap it up here in my garage, but I just wanted to show you that really it's just one quick modification. You know, take the weed guard off. It doesn't need to be there. It's just going to be in the way. You can catch a ton of fish in open water with a simple swim jig. Well, I really appreciate you guys. If you haven't subbed, thank you if you would. We will talk to you next time.